Hello, happy Sunday. Welcome to Tribal Bible. Let's read the Bible together. I'm just reading from John chapter 12, the beginning of John chapter 12. Just once again, where my Bible, I just found my Bible open here, so I read it, and this is what we got. So it's chapter 12, verses 1 to 8. So then 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at table. Mary, therefore, took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone. She has kept it for the day of the preparation for my burial. For the poor you will always have with you, but you do not always have me." So, of course, for those that don't know, this is like right before the Passover, where Jesus is going to be betrayed and handed over to the Roman authorities to be put to death. And so, it's a beautiful little picture. And there's a couple of other accounts of, and it's a bit unclear if it's the same moment or different ones that are similar. There's something in all the other Gospels have an account of there it is. Okay, so Luke has the one with Simon the Pharisees, so it could be the same thing and just different memories of the same account, but it's a beautiful little moment in amongst all the other serious things that are going on. And I couldn't help but think of that it was like bringing a feminine perspective in to this otherwise sort of serious man's world type business that was going on, and to do with power and authority and rule. And that Mary comes in and she's motivated more by her heart, and she's being present to the moment and knowing what she needs to do in that moment. And then there's a clash of these worlds, and particularly Judas representing an extreme of the other world, where he's thinking about the money, thinking about the value. So that the perfume that she's brought it's a word that means ointment, but it really comes from the word myrrh. So I'll go back to that, but yeah, he's concerned about the value of things from that sort of practical, sort of money-based mindset, where he's just like, that has high value monetarily. Why is it just being wasted? It's just being poured out for no reason. Like, we're just sitting having dinner. Why is she doing this? And that sort of practical mindset that quite often will clash with someone who's tuned into the heart and knows what the moment requires of them, and that are sort of drawn into that moment. Like, she's obviously just drawn and compelled, and she's weeping and just loving on him and caressing him. And like, how often do we think of Jesus as someone that we could engage with in such an intimate and beautiful, expressive way? But like I said, those that feel called to that, who have that heart of intimacy and love from the deep places of the heart, he's always going to clash with that other element that is just looking at things on the appearances and is not tuned in at all to what's really going on from God's point of view. And also that, women are more tuned into the heart realm and to relationship, but also to atmospheres, because it speaks about the fragrance of the perfume filling the whole room, So it's about the importance of atmospheres, and that women are sensitive to atmospheres. And I feel it's part of our role also is to affect atmospheres in that same way, of pouring out this perfume that on the worldly side has this sort of value, but in reality has real value. And that's what Jesus is like, leave her alone, like she knows what she's doing. And in other accounts it says, she'll always be remembered for this beautiful thing she's done. So he is completely tuned in to that heart level, and that in a sense that's the level, the God level of life, that God wants us to come into. He can't kind of force us into it, but he wants us to tune in to that heart level of what's really going on and what is your role to play in this moment. And don't worry about those that are just tuned in on the surface level and the ideas of like what has value and what doesn't, and what should we be doing now, and who's who and who's the most important. To not worry about the backlash you get from that, but to just be present to the moment, and giving God that true worship of love and yieldedness in the moment. And that the word for ointment, so the word for precious is of great value, great or costly or respect. It has to do with the idea of respect. So it's once again about what you do respect. And it's telling, of course, that, Judas, who's worried about that level and about the money, and because it's implied that he's also dipping into it, about what you respect. That Jesus says that where your heart is, there your treasure is. So what is it that you're treasuring, that you're valuing? And that this is a moment of pure love, and that she's valuing that pure love. And so this bottle of perfume that actually gets broken to release this perfume is usually saved for a wedding or something really of a very important point in your life. But she understood that moment was that moment of importance, and Jesus confirms that and says she's done this in preparation for my burial, which was one of the uses for myrrh, which is the word that is used here for ointment, is actually a direct relationship with the word for myrrh. So it's just expected that it was myrrh. So it was which was a perfume used as incense and a symbol of romantic desire, because it becomes sweet when fired up. So it's not only romantic desire, but it's also used as an ointment for embalming. And the Song of Song repeatedly employs myrrh to portray the intimacy and delight of the covenant love. So myrrh represents consecration, sacrificial love, and regal honor. And so it was coming together of all those things, that intimacy of love that she felt. She stepped into that space where she could be criticized by the people around her, but she was driven by that passionate love for him and didn't hold back. But it's also representing his value. Just simply the love of him is the value, not so-called money, and and also using the sort of virtue of looking after the poor as a cover for having a bad heart, like a heart that is not tuned in to what's really going on, not tuned into love. And I think I better leave it there. I don't want it to go too long, but I could ramble on because it's so exciting once you start to enter in and feel that presence of the word. So God bless you. Shalom. Have a lovely Sunday.